The cargo ship touched down on Outpost Kalen with a heavy thud. Day One killed the engines and sat back in his pilot seat, watching the fuel indicators blink red. He had pushed the old vessel too hard, jumping through 3 systems without proper rest. Now he would pay for it with time and credits he didn't have. He climbed out of the cockpit and stepped onto the landing platform. The air here tasted metallic and cold. Around him, dozens of ships sat in various states of repair. Some looked newer than his, sleek and painted in corporate colors. Others were older, held together with patches and prayer. His ship fit somewhere in the middle. The station buzzed with activity. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the corridors. He saw the tall, thin Variks with their multiple eyes. He watched the floating Quelm drift past, their tentacles carrying cargo containers. A group of armored Korthans stomped by, their 4 arms swinging with each heavy step. Day One kept his head down and moved toward the fuel depot. He had learned long ago that humans attracted attention in places like this. Not good attention. The curious kind, or worse, the mocking kind. The fuel depot clerk barely looked at him. It was a Variks, its 3 eyes focused on multiple screens at once. Day One paid the fee, wincing at the cost. His account was getting dangerously low. He would need to find work soon. With the fueling process automated, he had 2 hours to kill. His stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten in almost a day. The station map showed a cantina on level 3. He headed that way. The cantina was larger than he expected. The ceiling stretched high above and the room was packed with bodies. Most were alien, but he spotted a few humans scattered in the crowd. None of them looked his way. They had their own problems. He found a seat at the bar and ordered something that looked like soup. The bartender, a squat creature with too many fingers, slid the bowl toward him without a word. It smelled strange but edible. He was 3 spoonfuls in when he heard the laughter. It started at a table across the room. A group of reptilian aliens clustered together, their scales shimmering green and black under the lights. Vrelith. He recognized the species from the trade routes. They were pack hunters, aggressive and territorial. They dominated several systems in this sector. One of them stood up. He was larger than the others, with scarred scales and yellow eyes that fixed on Day One. The creature walked toward the bar, his clawed feet clicking on the metal floor. The others followed, spreading out to surround him. "Look what crawled in here," the large one said. His voice was rough, like rocks grinding together. A human, all alone. Day One kept eating his soup.
He had been through this before.
Sometimes ignoring them worked. Sometimes it didn't. "I'm talking to you, Softskin." The Vrelith leaned closer. His breath smelled like sulfur and rot. "Do you know where you are?" "A cantina," Day One said quietly. "Eating a meal," the Vrelith laughed. His companions joined in, their voices creating a harsh chorus. Other aliens in the cantina turned to watch. Some looked amused. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. "He has a mouth," the Vrelith said. "Tell me, human, what brings you to our station?" "Fuel stop. I'll be gone in 2 hours." 2 hours. The Vrelith tapped his claws on the bar. "That seems too long. I think you should leave now." Day One set down his spoon and turned to face the creature. "I paid for fuel. I paid for this meal. I'm not breaking any laws." "Laws?" The Vrelith's eyes narrowed. "You think laws protect you here? This is neutral space, Softskin. No Earth fleet to run to. No human guards to save you." A female voice cut through the tension. "Leave him alone, Skarn." Day One looked past the Vrelith and saw a human woman approaching. She wore a medical officer's uniform, the symbol of the station's health services on her shoulder. Her black hair was pulled back tight and her eyes were hard. "Yunha," Skarn said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "Always protecting your weak little species." "He's not bothering anyone," Yunha said. She stood next to Day One, her arms crossed. "Find someone else to harass." Skarn's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "Interesting. 2 humans now. Should I be frightened?" "You should be smart," Yunha said. "Station security doesn't like brawls in public spaces." "Who said anything about a brawl?" Skarn stepped back and spread his arms wide. "I'm simply offering our guest here an opportunity. A chance to prove that humans aren't as pathetic as everyone says." The cantina grew quieter. Aliens stopped their conversations to listen. Day One felt the weight of dozens of eyes on him. "The culling," Skarn announced. "Our human friend here will participate in the culling." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some aliens clicked their approval. Others made sounds that might have been laughter. Yunha grabbed Day One's arm. Don't listen to him. The culling is a death sentence. What is it? Daewon asked. Skarn's smile widened, showing rows of sharp teeth. Simple rules. You get a 2-hour head start in the lower levels. Level 9, to be specific. Then we hunt you. If you survive until morning, you win. If we catch you... He left the sentence unfinished. It's murder disguised as sport, Yunha hissed. No one survives. Don't do it. Daewon looked around the cantina. He saw the mocking expressions, the barely hidden contempt. These aliens didn't see him as a person. They saw prey. They saw weakness. He thought about his ship, held together with repairs he could barely afford. He thought about the long years of hauling cargo through dangerous space, always looking over his shoulder, always being the outsider. He thought about the Titan campaign, about the things he had done to survive when everyone said humans couldn't win. I accept, he said. The cantina erupted in cheers and laughter. Skarn's eyes gleamed with triumph. Yunha's face went pale. You fool, she whispered. You just signed your death warrant. A massive alien pushed through the crowd. He stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 thick arms and gray skin like stone. A Korthan warrior. His voice boomed across the room. Threx will join this hunt. It has been too long since I had proper sport. More aliens volunteered. 2 insectoid creatures with clicking mandibles. A shadowy figure in the corner who said nothing but nodded slowly. Within minutes, 8 hunters had signed up. Skarn approached Daewon and placed a claw on his shoulder. You have 2 hours starting now. Use them wisely, Softskin. You will need every second. Station security arrived to oversee the transport to level 9. They looked bored, as if this was routine. One of them, a Varix, handed Daewon a small emergency kit. Standard issue. Don't say we didn't give you a chance. Yunha followed as they escorted him out. Listen to me, she said urgently. Level 9 is a maze. Old industrial sector. Lots of hiding places, but also lots of dead ends. The gravity is unstable in some sections. Don't trust the floor. Why are you helping me? Daewon asked. Because I'm human, she said simply. And because I'm tired of watching our people die for alien entertainment. They reached the elevator to level 9. The doors opened, revealing darkness beyond. The security guard pushed Daewon forward. 2 hours. Good luck, human. You'll need it. As the doors closed, Daewon heard Skarn's laughter echoing through the corridor. He heard the cheers of the crowd, placing bets on how long he would last. He heard Yunha shout something, but the words were cut off as the elevator descended. The darkness swallowed him whole. The elevator dropped and dropped and dropped. When it finally stopped, the doors opened onto a nightmare of rusted metal and broken machinery. The air here was colder, thinner. Emergency lights flickered, casting shadows that moved like living things. Daewon stepped out into level 9. The doors closed behind him with a final, terrible sound. He was alone in the dark with 2 hours before the hunters came. He opened the emergency kit and found a small flashlight, a thermal blanket, and a water bottle. No weapons, no communication device, nothing useful, but Daewon smiled in the darkness. These aliens had made a mistake. They thought humans were weak because they were smaller, slower, less armed. They didn't understand what made humans dangerous. They were about to learn. He turned on the flashlight and began to move deeper into level 9. He had 2 hours to prepare. 2 hours to turn this hunting ground into his battlefield. The Vrelith wanted to see a human hunted. Daewon would show them what a human looked like when he stopped running and started hunting back. Level 9 stretched out before Daewon like the skeleton of a dead beast. Massive pipes ran along the walls and ceiling, some leaking fluids that hissed when they hit the floor. Old machinery sat silent and rusted, their purposes long forgotten. The emergency lights flickered constantly, making everything seem like it was moving. Daewon moved quickly through the corridors, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. He had 2 hours. 2 hours to learn this place, to find advantages, to prepare. He couldn't waste time being afraid. The gravity felt wrong here. In some sections he felt lighter, almost floating. In others, his boots felt like they were filled with lead. The station's gravity generators were failing on this level. That was useful information. He found a maintenance room 15 minutes into his exploration. Inside were old tools, spare parts, and a computer terminal covered in dust. He tried the terminal. It flickered to life, showing a map of level 9. He memorized as much as he could before it died again. The level was huge. It stretched across nearly a quarter of the station's lower section. There were hundreds of rooms, corridors, and access tunnels. Some areas were marked as hazardous. Others showed warning symbols he didn't recognize. He grabbed what tools he could carry. A plasma cutter, though it was old and might not work. Cables and wire, a length of pipe. Nothing that would help against claws and teeth, but better than nothing. The first trap took him 20 minutes to set up. He found a narrow corridor with a malfunctioning gravity well nearby. He rigged cables across the walkway at ankle height and positioned old metal panels above. If someone tripped the wire, the panels would fall. In the unstable gravity, they would fall hard and fast. The second trap was simpler. He found a coolant pipe that was leaking and opened it wider. The liquid pooled on the floor, creating a slick surface. In the flickering lights, it would be nearly invisible. Anyone running through here would slip. He kept moving, kept thinking. The Vrillith were pack hunters. They would work together, use coordinated attacks. The Korthan was strong but probably slow. The insectoid aliens might have different senses than him. He needed to know more. An hour into his preparation, he found something unexpected. A security camera. It was old, probably forgotten, but the indicator light was still blinking. Someone had reactivated the security system. Day-Wan moved to the next camera he saw. Its light was blinking too. Someone was watching. Someone was helping. He thought of Yunha and allowed himself a small hope. If she could see through these cameras, she might be able to guide him. He made a mental note of every camera location he passed. With 30 minutes left, he found what he was looking for. An old engineering station with an actual weapons locker. It was locked, but the lock was old. He used the plasma cutter to burn through it. Inside, he found 3 items that made him smile. The first was an exo-frame harness. It was designed for workers who needed to lift heavy equipment. It was old and the power cell was almost dead, but it would give him enhanced strength for at least a few minutes. More importantly, it had magnetic boots that could lock to metal surfaces. The second was a case of industrial charges. They were meant for controlled demolitions, small but powerful enough to blow through bulkheads. The third was a respirator mask. If he needed to flood an area with something toxic or create smoke, he could protect himself. He strapped on the exo-frame and attached the charges to his belt. The respirator went into his pack. He was starting to look less like prey and more like something dangerous. The final minutes ticked away. Day-Wan positioned himself in a central area where 3 corridors met. He could see anyone approaching from multiple directions. He had cameras covering his blind spots. He had traps laid out in key locations. He had tools and weapons now, but most importantly, he had a plan. The 2 hours ended with a sound that echoed through level 9. A horn, long and low. The hunt had begun. Day-Wan waited in the darkness, controlling his breathing. He could hear them coming. Footsteps clicking, the scrape of claws on metal. They were spreading out, searching. The first voice he heard was Skarn. Spread out. Check every room. The human is scared and hiding. Find him. They were treating this like a simple hunt. They expected him to run, to hide in corners, to beg when they found him. They were wrong. Day-Wan moved silently through a maintenance tunnel, circling around to flank them. He reached a junction where he could see down into a larger corridor. 2 of the insectoid aliens were there, moving together. Their bodies were covered in black shell-like armor, and their heads swiveled constantly, searching. He watched them approach his first trap. The cables were invisible in the dim light. The first insectoid stepped right over them by chance, but the second one's leg caught the wire. The metal panels fell. In the unstable gravity, they accelerated like missiles. The sound of impact was tremendous. The insectoid went down hard, its shell cracking. Green fluid leaked out. It tried to rise but couldn't. Its companion clicked frantically, calling for help. Day-Wan didn't wait to see more. He moved to his next position. Skarn's voice roared through the level. He set traps. Be careful. Stay together. But staying together made them predictable. Day-Wan had studied pack hunters before. They thought in terms of surrounding, overwhelming, using numbers. In the open, that was effective. In tight corridors with limited visibility, it was a weakness. He found a good vantage point and waited. 3 Vrillith moved into view, Skarn and 2 others. They were being more cautious now, testing the ground before stepping. Day-Wan activated his comm unit, tapping into their frequency. It was a trick Yunha had taught him years ago. Most aliens use standard military bands. He spoke quietly into the microphone. You wanted to hunt a human. Did you research what that means? The Vrelith froze, looking around in confusion. On Earth, Day-One continued, humans were persistence hunters. We didn't run fast. We didn't have claws or venom. But we could track prey for days. We could outlast anything. We would chase animals until their hearts gave out from exhaustion. Brave words from prey, Skarn snarled, trying to trace the signal. You're not hunting me, Day-One said. I'm studying you, learning your patterns, waiting for mistakes. He cut the transmission and moved again. The psychological aspect was important. Fear was a weapon too. He heard heavy footsteps and knew Threx was coming. The Korthan was too big to move quietly. Day-One positioned himself near another trap, this one more elaborate. Threx emerged into a large open area. His forearms held weapons now, crude but effective. His gray skin looked like stone in the emergency lighting. He moved slowly, carefully, his eyes scanning every shadow. Day-One triggered the trap remotely using a piece of wire he had strung. A support beam he had loosened with industrial charges collapsed. It didn't hit Threx directly, but it crashed into a coolant tank. The tank exploded, spraying freezing liquid everywhere. Threx roared in anger and pain. The liquid was cold enough to burn. He stumbled backward, temporarily blinded. Day-One didn't engage. He disappeared back into the shadows. The point wasn't to fight them head-on, not yet. The point was to make them afraid, to make them doubt, to turn this from a hunt into something else. Another voice crackled through the darkness. It was coming from the station's intercom system. Yunha's voice, disguised and distorted. Security alert. Hunters approaching through Section 7. Gravity failure in Section 12. She was feeding him information. Day-One felt a surge of gratitude. He moved toward Section 7, avoiding the hunters she had warned him about. He found the remaining insectoid alone, separated from its dead companion. It was clicking nervously, its antennae twitching. It didn't see Day-One approach from above. He had used the magnetic boots to walk along the ceiling. He dropped down silently, the exoframe giving him extra strength. He landed on the insectoid's back and used the length of pipe he had found earlier. The creature's shell was hard, but the joints were soft. It went down with a gurgling click, 2 down, 6 to go. But now he had something better than tools. He had a weapon. The insectoid had carried an energy weapon, something that fired bolts of compressed plasma. It was designed for its alien anatomy, but Day-One could make it work. He heard Skarn's voice again, closer now. The human killed another one. Find him, he can't hide forever. Day-One smiled in the darkness. Skarn still didn't understand. He wasn't hiding. He was hunting. He moved through the corridors like a ghost, using every advantage. The cameras showed him where they were. His traps slowed them down. His attacks from unexpected angles kept them off balance. Another Vrelith appeared, moving alone down a side corridor. A mistake. Day-One had learned that about pack hunters. Separate them and they became vulnerable. He waited until the alien passed, then fired the plasma weapon at point-blank range. The Vrelith died without making a sound. 3 down. The horn sounded again, a different tone this time. Skarn was calling his remaining hunters together. They were scared now. Day-One could hear it in how they moved, how they called to each other. He found a good position overlooking their gathering point. 6 hunters remained. Skarn, Threx, 1 more Vrelith, and 3 others he hadn't identified clearly yet. One was definitely the shadow figure from the cantina, barely visible even now. They were arguing. Threx wanted to continue the hunt aggressively. Skarn wanted to be more cautious. Day-One's fingers moved carefully as he attached the last industrial charge to the coolant junction. The pipes here were massive, each one thick enough that he could walk through them standing upright. They carried supercooled liquid that regulated the station's temperature. Breaking them would create chaos. He checked his respirator mask one more time. The seals were good. The filter was old but functional. When the pipes burst, this entire section would flood with freezing vapor. He would be ready. The hunters would not. Through the flickering emergency lights, he could hear them getting closer. They were moving as a group now, sweeping through the corridors systematically. Smart tactics, but it made them predictable. He activated the detonator and moved to a safe distance. Then he waited. Patience was the key. Let them get closer. Let them commit to this section. Skarn's voice echoed through the corridor. He came this way. I can smell his fear, Day One almost laughed. These aliens relied too much on their enhanced senses. They thought their advantages made them superior. They didn't understand that advantages could become weaknesses. The group entered the main chamber. All 6 of them. Threx led the way, his forearms holding improvised weapons. Skarn and the other Vrelith flanked him, their yellow eyes scanning the shadows. Behind them came 3 others. One was another insectoid, clicking nervously. The second was something Day One hadn't gotten a good look at before. It was tall and thin, with too many joints in its limbs. The third was the shadow figure, still barely visible even in direct light. Some kind of active camouflage. Day One triggered the charges. The explosion shook level 9. The coolant pipes ruptured simultaneously, and a massive cloud of freezing vapor erupted into the chamber. The temperature dropped instantly. The vapor was so thick that visibility dropped to almost nothing. The hunters screamed. Different sounds from different species, but all expressing the same thing. Shock, pain, confusion. Day One pulled on his respirator and activated the magnetic boots. He walked along the wall while the others stumbled blindly below. The freezing vapor was heavier than air, settling low. By staying high, he could see over it. The insectoid was the first casualty. It had frozen in place, its body chemistry unable to handle the extreme cold. It toppled over like a statue and shattered when it hit the ground. Threx was roaring, swinging his arms wildly. The cold affected him, but his thick skin protected him more than the others. He was dangerous, but blind. Skarn and his remaining packmate were trying to coordinate, but the vapor interfered with their communication. Their thermal vision was useless in the uniform cold. Their sense of smell was overwhelmed by the chemical tang of coolant. The tall, thin alien had collapsed, its limbs spasming. Whatever it was, the cold had shut down its system. That left 3. Skarn, his packmate, and the shadow figure. Day One made his move. He dropped from the wall silently, landing behind the Vrelith packmate. The exoframe gave him the strength he needed. He grabbed the alien's head and twisted. The crack echoed through the chamber. Skarn spun around, but Day One was already gone, disappearing back into the vapor. "Fight me," Skarn screamed. "Stop hiding like a coward." Day One's voice came from the speakers. Yunha had given him access to the intercom system. "Coward? You brought 8 hunters against 1 unarmed human. Tell me about cowardice." He moved again, circling through the vapor. Threx was still dangerous. The Korthan's wild swinging was clearing the vapor in patches. Day One needed to deal with him first. He grabbed one of the fallen alien's weapons. It was a blade, crude but sharp. He tested its weight and balance. Not ideal, but it would work. Threx charged in his direction, somehow sensing him despite the vapor. The 4 arms came at him like hammers. Day One dodged the first blow, parried the second, and rolled under the third. The fourth caught him in the shoulder, sending him spinning. The exoframe absorbed most of the impact, but pain shot through his arm. Threx was too strong for direct combat. He needed another approach. He ran, and Threx followed. Good. Day One led him toward one of the sections where gravity was failing. The magnetic boots kept him stable, but Threx relied on weight and strength. As they entered the unstable zone, Day One felt the gravity shift. He locked his boots to the floor. Threx stumbled as his weight suddenly changed. He was floating, unable to control his momentum. Day One struck. The blade cut deep into Threx's side. The Korthan roared and grabbed at him, but Day One released his magnetic lock and pushed off, using the low gravity to propel himself away. Threx tried to follow, but without proper footing, he was helpless. He drifted into a wall of exposed electrical conduits. The spark was bright even through the vapor. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. The Korthan's body went rigid, then limp. 5 down. Skarn's voice had lost its arrogance. "What are you?" Day One emerged from the vapor, his respirator making him look like something from a nightmare. "I'm what you wanted to hunt. I'm a human." Skarn backed away. His yellow eyes were wide with something Day One recognized. Fear. Real fear. "This isn't how it works. You're supposed to run. You're supposed to hide and beg." "Your mistake," Day One said, "was thinking humans are prey because we're not as strong or fast. You forgot to ask what made us the dominant species on our planet. What let us survive ice ages, predators, and ourselves." He raised the plasma weapon he had taken from the dead insectoid. "We adapt, we learn. We use tools. And when something tries to hunt us, we hunt it back." Skarn tried to run, but his legs gave out. The cold had weakened him more than he realized. He crawled instead, leaving a trail in the dissipating vapor. Day-Wan followed slowly. There was no rush now. The psychological aspect was important. Let Skarn feel what his victims felt. Let him understand the terror of being prey. Movement in his peripheral vision. The shadow figure. It had survived somehow, its camouflage adapting to the cold and vapor. It came at him fast, a blade in its hand. Day-Wan spun and fired. The plasma bolt went wide. The shadow figure was too fast. The blade came at his throat. A voice crackled through his comm. Left 3 meters, Yunha. He trusted her completely. He dodged left without thinking. The blade missed by centimeters. He fired again, aiming where she had indicated. The bolt connected. The shadow figure's camouflage failed. It was humanoid but wrong, with too many eyes and a mouth that split vertically. It collapsed, smoke rising from the hole in its chest. 6 down. Only Skarn remained. Day-Wan walked to where the Vrelith had collapsed. Skarn looked up at him, his breath coming in short gasps. Mercy, please, it was just sport. Just tradition. Sport, Day-Wan repeated. He thought about all the humans who had been hunted before him. How many had begged like this? How many had received mercy? How many? What? How many humans have you hunted? Skarn's silence was answer enough. Day-Wan raised his weapon, then stopped. Killing Skarn here in the dark wouldn't accomplish anything. The aliens in the station needed to see what happened. They needed to understand that humans weren't easy prey anymore. Get up, Day-Wan said. What? Get up, we're going back to the cantina. Skarn stared at him in confusion. You're letting me live? I'm making you useful. Day-Wan grabbed Skarn by his collar and hauled him upright. The exoframe made it easy despite Skarn's size. You're going to walk back with me. You're going to tell everyone what happened here. You're going to explain how a lone, unarmed human killed 6 trained hunters. Understanding dawned in Skarn's eyes, followed by something worse than physical fear. Humiliation. In Vrelith culture, defeat was shameful. Public defeat was unthinkable. You can't, Skarn whispered. My pack. My reputation. Should have thought of that before, Day-Wan said. He shoved Skarn toward the elevator. Move. They made their way through level 9. The damage was extensive. Frozen vapor had coated everything in ice. Bodies lay where they had fallen. Broken equipment sparked and smoked. It looked like a battlefield, which Day-Wan supposed it was. Yunha's voice came through the comm. Security is waiting at the elevator. Station masters are demanding to know what happened. There's a crowd forming. Good, Day-Wan said. Let them see. The elevator ride up felt longer than the ride down. Skarn kept his eyes down, unable to meet Day-Wan's gaze. The proud pack leader was broken now, defeated not just in body but in spirit. The doors opened to chaos. The cantina level was packed. Hundreds of aliens crowded the corridor, all trying to see. Station security had formed a barrier, but even they looked shocked when they saw Skarn being led out by the human. Silence fell across the crowd. No one spoke. No one moved. They just stared. Day-Wan walked Skarn into the cantina itself. The room was even more packed than before. Every table was full. Aliens stood on chairs and hung from the rafters. News of the hunt had spread throughout the station. He spotted Yunha near the bar. She looked pale but determined. Next to her was a human man Day-Wan didn't recognize, wearing maintenance worker coveralls. Day-Wan pushed Skarn into the center of the room. Tell them, he said simply. Skarn's voice was barely a whisper. He killed them all. All of them. Louder, Day-Wan commanded. He killed them all. Skarn's voice cracked. 6 trained hunters. He killed them all and hunted me. The human hunted me. The crowd erupted. Some aliens made sounds of disbelief. Others looked at Day-Wan with new eyes. A few humans in the crowd stood straighter, their expressions proud. Word traveled fast through the trade routes. Within days, every station in the sector knew about Outpost Kalen. They knew about the human who had turned the culling into a massacre. They knew about Skarn's humiliation, but not everyone believed it. 3 weeks after leaving Outpost Kalen, Day-Wan received a message on his ship's communication system. It came through on an encrypted channel, which was unusual enough to get his attention. The message was simple. Come to way station 47. Someone wants to meet you. Day-Wan almost deleted it. He had cargo to deliver, routes to run, and no interest in whatever games aliens were playing now. But something made him hesitate. The message included coordinates and a promise of payment. Good payment. Enough to repair his ship properly and buy supplies for a year. He changed course. Waystation 47 was smaller than Outpost Kalen. It served mostly as a refueling point for ships traveling through the Outer Rim. The station was old, built during the first expansion period, and it showed its age in every corridor. Daewon docked and made his way to the meeting coordinates. They led him to a private room in the station's commercial district. The door was unmarked, but it slid open when he approached. Inside, he found 3 humans waiting for him. The first was a woman in her 50s, with gray streaks in her black hair and scars on her hands. She introduced herself as Sunmi, a cargo captain like himself. The second was younger, maybe 30, with the build of a soldier. His name was Tae-hyun, and he carried himself like someone who had seen combat. The third was a thin man with sharp eyes and nervous energy. He was called Minho and claimed to be an information broker. "We've been looking for you," Sunmi said, gesturing for him to sit. "What you did at Outpost Kalen changed things." "I survived a hunt," Daewon said carefully. "That's all?" "That's not all," Minho interrupted. "You made them afraid. For the first time in years, aliens in this sector are scared of humans. Do you understand how significant that is?" Daewon didn't like where this was going. "I'm not looking to start a war." "We're not asking you to," Tae-hyun said. "But we are asking you to help. There are humans all over this sector being treated like you were, mocked, threatened, hunted. Some don't survive. We want to change that." Sunmi leaned forward. "We're forming a network. Human cargo pilots, traders, workers, anyone who travels these routes. We share information, watch each other's backs, and when someone is threatened, we respond. But we need someone people know. Someone with a reputation." "You want me to be a symbol," Daewon said. "We want you to be a reminder," Sunmi corrected, "that humans aren't prey, that we fight back." Daewon considered their offer. He had never wanted to be a leader or a symbol. He just wanted to run his cargo routes in peace. But he thought about all the times he had been mocked, threatened, treated as less than other species. He thought about Yoonha and Bo-ram, who had risked themselves to help him. "I'll think about it," he said finally. They gave him a communication device, a small chip that would let him contact the network anywhere in the sector. He took it, though he wasn't sure he would use it. As he left the meeting, he noticed something. The aliens in the station corridors watched him differently now. Some with wariness, others with curiosity. A few even stepped aside to let him pass. It was strange and uncomfortable, but undeniably different from before. He made his way back to his ship and prepared to leave. His cargo was due at a mining colony 3 jumps away. Simple work, good pay, no complications. The first 2 jumps went smoothly, but as he approached the 3rd jump point, his sensors detected something wrong. A ship was following him. It had been trying to stay hidden, but Daewon had learned to watch his back. He ran the signature through his database. It came back as a bounty hunter vessel. Registration showed it belonged to a Korthan named Vex. Daewon's stomach tightened. The Korthans were Threx's species, the one he had killed on level 9. This was either revenge or someone testing him. Either way, it was bad news. He considered his options. He could try to outrun them, but his ship wasn't built for speed. He could call for help, but he was in deep space between stations. Help wouldn't arrive in time, or he could face them. The decision was made for him when his comm system activated. Vex's voice was deep and gravelly. "Human, I am tracking you for Threx's clan. They demand compensation for his death." "Your friend chose to hunt me," Daewon replied. He accepted the risks. "Risks?" Vex laughed. "You used tricks and traps. You fought without honor. The clan demands justice." Daewon felt anger rising. "Honor? 8 against 1 and you talk about honor?" "Prepare to be boarded," Vex said, cutting the transmission. The bounty hunter's ship moved to intercept. It was larger than Daewon's vessel, heavily armed and armored. A direct fight would be suicide. But Daewon had learned something important during the culling. Direct fights were for fools. Smart fighters used every advantage they could find. He checked his cargo hold. He was carrying mining supplies. Explosives, drilling equipment, and industrial chemicals. Not weapons, but in the right hands, everything was a weapon. He also had something else. The communication chip from the network. He activated it and sent out a distress signal with his location. He didn't know if anyone would respond or if they would arrive in time, but it was worth trying. Vex's ship latched onto his with magnetic clamps. Daewon heard the cutting torches starting to breach his airlock. He had maybe 3 minutes. He moved quickly, setting up his defense. He flooded one corridor with mining chemicals that would ignite with a spark. He positioned explosive charges in key locations. He even rigged the life support system to dump all its oxygen into the cargo hold, creating a massive pressure differential. The airlock breached. Vex entered first, his forearms holding weapons. Behind him came 3 more Korthans, all heavily armed and armored. They expected to find Day-One cowering or trying to hide. Instead, they found an empty corridor. Day-One's voice came through the ship's speakers. "You wanted to hunt a human. Let me teach you how we handle boarders." He triggered the first trap. The chemical-soaked corridor ignited, creating a wall of fire. The Korthans were protected by their armor, but the heat and smoke forced them back. While they regrouped, Day-One moved through the maintenance tunnels. His ship wasn't large, but he knew every centimeter of it. The Korthans did not. He emerged behind one of the trailing hunters and used the industrial drill as a weapon. The spinning bit punched through the Korthan's armor at the joints. The alien went down with a roar. Vex spun around, but Day-One was already gone. "Coward!" Vex bellowed. "Face me." "Your species values strength," Day-One said through the speakers. "Mine values survival. Which do you think matters more in the void of space?" He triggered the pressure differential. The sudden change in air pressure threw the Korthans off balance. One of them was slammed against a bulkhead hard enough to crack his armor. 2 Korthans left, including Vex. Day-One knew he couldn't keep this up forever. His ship was taking damage from the fighting. Systems were failing. He needed to end this quickly. He had one more trick, one final gambit that was insane and desperate. He moved to the cargo hold and started the sequence. Vex and his remaining hunter found him there. They had figured out his pattern, anticipated his movement. Smart, but not smart enough. "Nowhere left to run, human," Vex said, raising his weapons. "I'm not running," Day-One said. He showed them the detonator in his hand. "This is wired to all the explosives in this cargo hold. Enough to vaporize this entire ship and probably damage yours too." Vex laughed. "You would kill yourself just to take us with you?" "That's insane, is it?" Day-One asked. "Or is it what happens when you corner a persistence predator? We evolved to chase prey until it died. What do you think we do when we're the ones being chased?" For the first time, Vex looked uncertain. "You're bluffing." "Maybe." Day-One's finger hovered over the trigger. "Want to find out?" A new voice crackled through the comm system. "This is the transport vessel Morningstar. We received your distress call. Stand down, Korthan vessel, or we will open fire." Relief flooded through Day-One, though he didn't let it show on his face. The network had responded. More voices joined the channel. "This is the cargo hauler Pacific Drift. We have weapons locked. This is the mining ship Iron Will. Ready to engage." Vex looked at his scanner and saw the truth. 3 human vessels had arrived, and they were all armed. Not military ships, but cargo vessels and miners who had retrofitted their ships with weapons. It wouldn't be enough to win a real fight, but it was enough to make attacking costly. "This isn't over," Vex said, backing toward the airlock. "Yes, it is," Day-One replied. "Go back to Threx's clan and tell them something. Tell them that if they come after me or any other human in this network, we won't fight alone. We'll come together, and we'll make you regret it." Vex and his hunter retreated to their ship. The magnetic clamps released and the bounty hunter vessel moved away. It jumped out of the system without another word. Day-One collapsed against a bulkhead, exhaustion hitting him all at once. His hand was still on the detonator. He hadn't been bluffing. He would have done it if necessary. That realization was almost as frightening as the fight itself. The 3 rescue ships moved into formation around him. Sunmi's voice came through the comm. "Nice work. We picked up your signal and came as fast as we could." 6 months passed. The story of Outpost Kalen spread through the trade routes like wildfire. Every version was different. Some said Day-One had killed 50 hunters. Others claimed he had fought barehanded against an army. The truth didn't matter as much as what the story represented. Humans were no longer easy targets. Day-One continued running his cargo routes, but now he carried the communication chip everywhere. At least once a week, someone in the network called for help. Sometimes it was simple advice. Sometimes it was a full rescue operation like his own had been. The network grew. What started as a few dozen humans became hundreds, then thousands. They weren't soldiers or warriors. They were pilots, traders, miners, engineers, and workers who had decided they were tired of being afraid. But not everyone was happy about this change. On a cold morning on Station Meridian, Daewon received a message that made his blood run cold. The station was hosting another culling, and this time, the target was a young human woman who had refused to give up her cargo to a gang of alien raiders. Her name was Ji-won, and she was only 23 years old. Daewon called an emergency meeting of the network. 50 humans gathered in a rented cargo bay on Meridian, their faces grim. Sunmi stood at the front. The hunt is scheduled to begin in 6 hours. Station security is allowing it under the old rules. Ji-won is being held in a detention cell until it starts. We need to stop this, Taehyun said. Break her out before it begins. Station security is prepared for that, Minho replied. They've tripled the guards. They know we'll try something. Then what do we do? A woman named Hyejin asked. Let them kill her? Daewon had been quiet until now. He stood up and the room fell silent. We don't break her out. We join her. Everyone started talking at once. Sunmi held up her hand for quiet. Explain. The rules of the culling allow for any willing participant to enter, Daewon said. They want to hunt a human? Fine. But instead of one human running scared, they'll face 50 humans working together. That's suicide, someone said. The hunting ground will be level 6 of this station. It's massive, and they're bringing in 20 hunters this time. 20 against 50, Daewon said. Better odds than I had. You survived because you knew the terrain and set traps on, Taehyun pointed out. We'd be going in blind. Not if we prepare, Minho said, his eyes lighting up. I can get us the station schematics. We'll have a few hours to study them, and we have something else they don't expect. What's that? Hyejin asked. Each other, Minho said. They hunt in packs of their own species. We can coordinate across the entire group. Different skills, different strengths, all working toward one goal. The room erupted in discussion again. Some were scared, which was reasonable. Others were eager, which worried Daewon more. Revenge and anger made people reckless. Sunmi called for a vote. Of the 50 humans present, 47 agreed to participate. The 3 who declined volunteered to provide external support. They had 4 hours to prepare. Minho secured the station schematics and projected them onto a large screen. Level 6 was a manufacturing district, abandoned after a radiation leak years ago. It had been cleaned since then, but most businesses had never returned. The result was a maze of empty factories and warehouses. They divided into teams based on skills. Engineers would handle traps and environmental control. Ex-soldiers would lead combat operations. Pilots and mechanics would create diversions and control key choke points. Daewon found himself leading one of the combat teams. With him were Taehyun, Sunmi, and 5 others. Their job was to actively hunt the hunters while the other teams protected Ji-won and controlled the territory. Boram had arrived from Outpost Kalen specifically for this. He brought supplies, communication equipment, basic weapons, and even some of the industrial charges Daewon had used before. Couldn't let you have all the fun, Boram said with a nervous smile. Yoon Ha had sent a message but couldn't leave her post. However, she had arranged for 3 other human medical personnel to be on standby. If anyone got injured, they would have help immediately. 2 hours before the hunt, they presented their plan to station security. The lead security officer was a Varix who looked extremely unhappy. This is highly irregular, the officer said. The culling is meant to be one prey, multiple hunters. Your rules say any willing participant can enter, Sunmi replied. Show me where it specifies a number limit. The officer checked the regulations and found nothing. The rules had been written assuming no one would be crazy enough to volunteer in groups. The hunting party won't agree to this, the officer said finally. Then tell them to cancel, Daewon said, or accept that they're not hunting prey anymore. They're walking into a war. The hunting party was contacted. Their leader was a Vrelith named Korza, who claimed to be Skarn's cousin. When told about the 50 human volunteers, Korza laughed. Let them come, Korza said. We will show the sector what happens to humans who forget their place. The hunt was on. They released Ji-won from detention and brought her to the staging area. She was small, with short black hair and defiant eyes. When she saw the 50 humans waiting for her, she started crying. You came for me, she whispered. All of you. No one hunts humans alone anymore, Sunmi said, putting an arm around her shoulders. That's the point. They entered level 6 together. The doors sealed behind them. They had 2 hours before the hunters followed. The preparation was intense. The engineering teams rigged traps throughout the district. The combat team scouted patrol routes. The support teams established a central position that could be defended if needed. Day One's team went hunting immediately. They knew from experience that the best defense was making the hunters too scared to be aggressive. The horn sounded. 20 hunters entered level 6, but this time was different. This time the humans weren't scattered and afraid. They moved in coordinated teams, communicating through encrypted channels. They had planned, prepared, and turned the hunting ground into their territory. The first hunter team encountered a trap within 10 minutes. 3 Vrelith walked into a corridor that had been rigged with industrial chemicals. The explosion was small but enough to injure them badly. They retreated, calling for help. The second encounter was more direct. Taehyun's team ambushed 5 hunters in a warehouse. The humans used hit-and-run tactics, attacking from multiple angles and disappearing before the hunters could coordinate a response. 2 hunters went down. The others fled. Korza's voice echoed through the district.
Stand and fight, cowards.
Day One responded over an open channel. You wanted to hunt humans. You're getting your wish, just not the way you expected. The psychological warfare was deliberate. The hunters had expected easy prey. Instead, they found themselves being tracked, trapped, and attacked by an organized force. By the 2-hour mark, the hunters had lost 8 of their number. None of the humans had been seriously injured. Korza called for a retreat. This is madness. We're withdrawing! But station security, following the rules, refused. The culling continues until one side surrenders or is eliminated. Those are the regulations you agreed to. The regulations are wrong, Korza screamed. Then you should have thought about that before, Day One said calmly. Before you tried to hunt a young woman for entertainment. The remaining hunters tried to form a defensive position, but the humans had control of the territory. They cut off supply lines, blocked escape routes, and slowly tightened the circle. The battle lasted 6 more hours. It wasn't glorious or heroic. It was brutal and efficient. The humans used every advantage, numbers, preparation, coordination, and the knowledge that they were fighting not just for G1, but for every human who had been hunted before. When it ended, 12 hunters were dead. The remaining 8, including Korza, surrendered. The humans emerged from level 6 to find half the station watching. Thousands of aliens crowded the viewing platforms and corridors. The silence was absolute. Sunmi stepped forward, her uniform torn and bloody but her voice strong. Let this be a lesson. Humans are not your prey. We are not your entertainment. Hunt one of us and you hunt all of us, and we will show you what happens when the prey decides to hunt back. The station master arrived, the same Varix elder from before. It looked at the scene and then at the humans. The regulations regarding the culling will be changed. Effective immediately. Any hunt must be approved by representatives from both species involved, and the prey will be given the option to bring supporters. It was a small victory, but it was enough. The culling would never be the same. In the weeks that followed, the story spread even further. The Battle of Station Meridian, some called it. The day humans stopped running, others said. The details varied, but the core message was clear. Humans had changed the rules. 3 months later, Day One was back on his ship, hauling cargo through familiar routes. He received a call from an unfamiliar frequency. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. The face on the screen was young, alien, and scared. A Varix, barely adult. Are you the human from Outpost Kalen? I am, Day One said cautiously. I need to warn you. My clan is planning to attack human ships in the Outer Rim. They want revenge for what happened at Meridian. I don't agree with them, but I can't stop them. Day One was surprised. Why are you telling me this? Because what you said was right.